structure is the path to freedom. It is how I get stuff done. I crave structure because the structure allows me time to be creative. Insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different outcome. I don't think that working a lot is like, oh, you get a medal. Not at all. I do think that your actions have to match your ambitions, and I have very big ambitions. If that is what I have to do, then my actions have to map where I want to go.
What goes into finding powerful team?
100% will say,
I'd love to hear how you go into those, like the mindset around being the only woman in the room.
The only way you change the game is by playing the game. Do I wish things changed? Absolutely. But I believe that change is an activation from within. So if I want to change the system, get in the damn room. And it's not enough to break a frame of what people perceive a woman to be in the space. It has to be that you're opening doors for the people behind you. If it's not, we didn't do our job.
Welcome to the Jen Gottlieb Show.
Hello and welcome back to the Jen Gottlieb Show. Today on the show, we have one of my very best friends, the incredible and amazing Jasmine Star. If you don't know Jasmine, she is the host of the Jasmine Star podcast. She is a amazing social media creator. She is a entrepreneur, badass woman. I mean, if you follow me, there's a really good chance that you probably found me from Jasmine Star, or you also follow Jasmine Star. Now, I wanted to sit down with Jasmine for this specific episode because I know that she is currently in a really big transitional moment in her life, and she's creating a lot of pivots. And many of you always ask me in my Instagram DMs, listen, I'm going through a transition, I'm going through a pivot, and I don't know how to navigate it. I don't know how to message it on social media. I don't even know how to step into it or how to see what's next for me. Jasmine and I talked all about that. We also talked all about her family life, how she structures her days, and discipline and the importance of that, and also imposter syndrome, how to show up in a room that is the majority men and show up with confidence and courage, and how that's also helping other women in return. Man, we went all over the map in this conversation, but most importantly, Jasmine really spoke from her heart today. She spoke about her daughter and her unconventional marriage and family life. And it was really, 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 really special. I'm just honored and grateful that I get to show you this side of Jasmine Star. And I hope that you enjoy it just as much as I did. So without further ado, here you go. My episode with Jasmine Star. Jasmine! Hi, Jen.
I feel like we're so excited and we're ready for this conversation. Thank you.
We didn't even have any pre-talk. Like, It was literally like 2.5 seconds. You sat down and we're like, yeah.
But this is because we're actually friends in real life, and we can just land with each other. And you had said, let's talk about things that you haven't talked about before. And I said, or actually maybe this podcast should be about the stuff I haven't talked about before. Mm-hmm. Like the show should just be about two friends having real conversations about life, business, and everything on the in-between.
I love it. I love it. Because I know that a lot of people that listen to this show, if you're listening, there's a good chance you know Jasmine. If you don't, check out all of her things. She has an amazing podcast. But all right, here's where I want to start. Okay. I've been a fan of yours before we were friends. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first found you. And I don't know if we've ever talked about this, so I want to tell you how I first found you and what I first thought about you when I discovered you on Instagram. I think well before I really got into this space in a big way. I think I was a personal trainer at the time. And I discovered...
What year is this?
Man.
Roughly.
I'm so bad with years. It must have been over 7 years ago.
Okay.
Was there a chance that you were transitioning from being a photographer to
absolutely.
That's
exactly what it was.
Okay.
That's exactly the transition, yes.
Okay. So I find this adorable woman on Instagram with all these, like, your photos were just so poppy and so colorful, and your captions were so great. And you were a photographer, but you were also making like content kind of about social media. Mm-hmm. And I remember just seeing you and being like, oh my God, I want to be just like her. And I want to take you back to that time.
Ooh.
Because there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that maybe are in the version of you that was the photographer transitioning into what you are today, now Jasmine Star. And you probably could have never seen this coming when you were making that shift and that pivot. Mm-hmm. Where were you in your life then when you were known as one of the best wedding photographers, I think, in the world? Mm-hmm. And you knew that you loved it, but it wasn't quite it. And you were posting content and you were kind of in that messy middle and you were figuring it out. What was life like then? And how much did you know about where you were going to end up when you were in that space?
It's crazy because I think that you and I, if we could go back to our 14-year-old selves and we could be able to see where we were today, we would, I think I could safely speak for you. As for myself, our minds would be blown. Like, wow, I can't believe, like, that wasn't even in your sphere. You couldn't even imagine stuff like that. And when you're in it, you battle the more, what is enough, the aspiration, the push, the pull. And what I've noticed in my career is that I seem to be making a very strong pivot every 6 years. And I never thought it was intentional, but it actually is just my life cycle. I'm becoming different versions of myself. So when you go back and you're like, Jasmine, it was probably 7 years ago. And that's when I felt like a calling. Something about my life was changing. And I had been a photographer at that point in time, 13 years. We had built multiple businesses within the business. So I was educating photographers. We had products and resources for photographers. We had a digital store. I was working with high-end clients. I was working with luxury magazines. We were traveling the world. And for all intents and purposes, if I was being really, really nice to myself, I would look back to that version and say, you were the 1% of the 1% in that industry. And why is it not enough? And I don't think that in any way, shape, or form, it was a matter of enough with a capital E. It was, am I going to get to the end of my life, get to the pearly gates and say, I gave it all I had? And I felt like there was something in me that there was something more. And a lot of times people couldn't understand it. I didn't understand it. So here I was, the version of me who you saw was going through this transition, saying there's something else here. And if I went back, at the time, it felt like this big, massive change, a big pivot. But what I really think it was like a small shift in direction. But they had, there's been a lot of examples, like if a plane leaves New York to LA and it's 2 degrees off, you end up like in Alaska or something, right? So when we make these small, little, tiny changes, that's where you met me. And I was making this small, tiny change that will ultimately lead my life to an entirely different direction. But I knew there was something more. What exactly it was, I didn't know, but I knew that I had to start speaking to a different audience. And I taught photographers how to build better businesses. I taught photographers the resources. I sold things to help them make them, yes, better photographers, but better business owners. And so what I decided to do was to take what I was teaching to photographers and start applying it to small business owners. And I didn't know, but I have a knack for business. I just was like, okay, I'm working through it. And I started realizing, wait a minute, I can teach business principles. I could teach marketing and branding. And so I decided to go into the next market, which was small business owners. That's where our paths intersected. And I think that you aptly described, there was beautiful photos and it was very punchy. I mean, don't hate me. I probably had a cappuccino with some art on it, my hands in it.
Always.
Our feet in the sand somewhere. It was like the first time that we're actually turning a camera back around ourselves. And like, this is like really the advent of a new word called selfie. It's around that time that it's actually put into the dictionary as a word. And so we are at this like crazy time in history, in technology, in business building. And that's where our paths intersect. And I think on the outside, very much still today, it looks like punchy, bright, cappuccino, feet in the sand. And behind the scenes, it's, like an espresso, long late nights, feet in the sand, but like messy bun and like life is not together. And so I think that every 6 years there's a pivot. And I think it's beautiful that we're at this point now, because I definitely distinctly feel like in a pivot. And if I go back to that person, I had no idea how big and beautiful it could be. And so that's the thing that I want. Like, insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different outcome. So if I can look back and I can distinctly see 4 significant pivots in my life, what I tell myself is don't repeat the same pattern of wondering what if. You now know it's going to be bigger and better. Right now it is uncertain. And right now you battle imposter syndrome. But imposter syndrome is really just a key indicator. Doesn't mean you're not enough. It's telling you need to learn more about this thing. Not you can't do it. It's just an indicator. You need to learn more about this thing so you do feel confident. You're right. You're not prepared, but you can get prepared. That was a really long answer for where I was, but it kind of just like really dovetails to where we are right now.
1,000%. And it all connects. And I can't wait to talk about the pivot that's happening now, because clearly this is another cycle. Mm-hmm. A question that I get a lot, and I want to ask you actually, because I personally would like your advice on this. When you started pivoting from talking to photographers to talking to small business owners, and you started pivoting your messaging on social media, a lot of people ask me, how do I go from talking about one thing to talking about another thing? Do I have to like announce it to the world that I'm going to start talking about something else? How did you make that shift, maybe with imposter syndrome there?
Yes.
With a little bit of maybe resistance there and maybe like, oh my God, can I do this? But you did it anyway. So I want to hear the mindset and I want to hear the tactical.
Oh my God, you're so good because you said mindset and tactical, and I call it like there's the holy version and the hood version.
I want both.
Okay. Okay. So like, let's go for the, so in my mind, when I say hood, it's tactical. This is like street smarts. It's like you're going to find a way to get where you want to go. Like that's just that's how we were raised in the hood. Now the holy side is where we would be like very high level. And I think that the holy side of me, it requires courage. And it's courage enough to make the decision that people are not going to go with you. In fact, people will stop that journey with you. And now I understand it's not personal. So I had created a business and a brand around a particular topic. That was photography. That was how people saw me. That was my value proposition to them. When I decided to start speaking about different things in relation to business, that not was the business of photography, but it was just in business in general, people said, that's no longer of value to me. And I think that looking back, there were times where I was just like, well, wait a minute, it applies to your business. How are we not still here? And then I realized, well, I can't control what somebody else thinks or feels, but I can control my actions. So it's the courage to understand, like if somebody is now in the middle of a pivot and say, I want to talk about other things, it is the courage to say, I'm going to burn the ship that took me to this island. And if some people go into the island with me, that's amazing. And the ship will go on another way. And when you see the numbers drop and you see the engagement drop and you see that people are not sure what box you fit in anymore, a lot of times people go back. Like they will, like, I got to go back to the ship. Like the ship made me feel safe and the ship made me had my identity. But you have to strip the identity that you were in order to become the next version of yourself. And that, sitting alone on an island or sitting on an island with very few people, you're like, okay, now we build. And I think that that's distinctly where I am right now. It's like people really don't know what box to put me in. And not everybody's coming with me. And my engagement has totally dropped. And my open rates have totally dropped. And I'm just like, you've been here before. You've been here before. And it's going to take longer than you think. And it will look different than you expect. But it'll be bigger than you imagine.
I love it. Okay.
So yeah. I'm sorry. That was the courage decision. That's the holy version.
Holy.
Now the hood. The hood is a reintroduction. So I just look at this strictly through numbers. If I were to stop talking about X, which is what I've built my business and my brand about, and start talking about Y, and I just made the change overnight. That is possible. But people don't know how to contextualize anymore. Yeah. I do think that there is this nice kind of way that we as business owners, we as brand builders can actually create synergies. If we connect the dots for our followers to come along with us, then we're going to have more people come to the island with us. Not everybody, but more. And so for me, I start off simply by looking at a grid, right? If we look at a grid of 9, 1 out of 9 posts are going to be introducing a new topic or idea. And I keep on repeating that until I'm actually getting enough input, engagement, feedback on that 1 out of 9. And I'm like, oh, this is a small tweak I can make. And I think this is actually going to parlay well. So after doing 1 out of 9 for a few weeks, I then say it's going to be 2 out of 9 for another 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm just seeing, how are people engaging? What are they saying? It's kind of like a quiet zone. How do I need to reframe this package so that we get more engagement? And I'm going to stick at that 2 out of 9 until I start seeing an upward trend or people starting to connect the dots. Then I'll introduce 3 out of 9. This is a long process. Now, it's not the same for everybody. It's how good you are at being a storyteller and connecting the dots is how quickly you can pivot your content. But you're looking at a big shift, anywhere from 12 to 18 months.
So funny that you keep saying connecting the dots. I call it dot connecting content. So telling the story of where you were before and why it connects to where you are now.
Yes.
And consistency. And you did that consistently over time. And you still blend in your artistry and everything that you do today.
I hope so, yeah.
Oh my gosh. We need to talk about your content and your strategy around your content later. But I want to skip to where we were just going before we talked about the hood and the holy and all of that. Because you're talking about now and what's happening now. And I feel like we're at a really important moment in time in the world of Jasmine Star right now. And so I'm so grateful to get to have this conversation because I think that this is going to be one that we look back on.
We're document, baby.
We're documenting this moment because this is a really important one. So everybody screenshot this right now because this is when we were like, oh, we were in it. Yes. We're in the pivot. So you mentioned, and we haven't like really had a sit down until now, which I'm so excited about because we get to record our like friend talk. What's been going on in the business up until this point, the highs, the lows, and how did you get to this decision of something's coming? It's not where I'm at now, but I think I'm at another one of those 7-year moments.
Wow, Jen. We're really going to go there. We're going there.
Real
We're going
story,
there.
not the one that is, the pretty one.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I'm glad we're talking about this in a few days. We are going to be meeting with a group of women, and we have been by each other's sides consistently for 2 years. We meet about roughly every 6 months. We spend a few days together. We go hard. We go deep. We tear apart each other's businesses. We speak into it. And so I've been on other friends' podcasts talking about what it looks like and not having the words for it. And what I could say I did Lindsay Schwartz's podcast, Powerhouse podcast, back in January. And then what I can say now at the time of this recording, months later, is I still don't know how to speak about it, but I'm finding more words.
Okay.
And so bear with me as I don't really have all of the right words to describe what it is. I will say that when I decided to become a photographer and somebody asked me what I did, I couldn't even get the word out. I was like, I have a camera. And so you'd answer it with a question mark. I'm a photographer. And I feel like I'm at that point in my life right now as an entrepreneur is I know the thing that I want to do. And if I look at the past as evidence of what I can achieve in the future, then I should step forward confidently. But there's the should. And then there's the reality. And so instead, in lack of moments of confidence, what I will simply do is take small steps. It's just a small step. And the small step leads to the next step. So back in 2023, it's January, and I'm sitting in a room, and it is a mastermind, very, very successful, talented people. And I felt very intimidated being in the room. I felt very lucky to be in the room. And so whenever I'm in those situations, and even I think when we hang out together as a group of women, I think I'm very outgoing, but I'm not like a big talker. I just am really there to like focus, and I want to speak with intention. And so I'm there, and it's very quiet. I'm very quiet, and I'm seeing all these businesses, and I'm hearing all these business ideas. And then in my notebook, I'm like, I think I want to do this thing. And I kind of drew like an amoeba, like when I look back at it, like an octopus. There was like this big kind of thing, and it had like just like arms or tentacles, and I was just like this shape. I'm like, there's this thing that I want to do. And I'm like, in my mind, there's like this big company, and then underneath the company, we have teams or people, and they're running these things. And I'm just looking at this. And then in an off conversation, somebody had said, Jasmine, what if you could go out and build your big dream? And I'm like, okay, so it's like this octopus, and it has like these things. And he looks across from me, and he's like, that's a holding company. And I literally had my notebook, and I just wrote holding company. And I started asking him questions. How do I set up a holding company? I need to get independent LLCs. What breaks up with that? What goes into one of these things? So I just started asking whatever questions I could. It was literally 5 or 7 minutes. And then that kicked off something in January of 2023 that I just went on this wild discovery zone of how do I set up a holding company? Why do I want a holding company? And it's this thing, Jen, where every time in my life where I feel like I'm pushing something, it takes this mass amount of effort. And when I feel called to something, it literally is pulling at me. And so there's these ideas and things that I feel like are pulling at me. And I'm like, I don't even know how to describe that. It makes no God-given sense why I would have these multiple businesses under it. And yet I feel like so distinctly called to it. Like I know is this thing, and I know that I have a skill set. And so if I go back and if I were to cast a future version of what I believe my life and my business is intended to be and who I'm intended to serve, we have a holding company that is Jasmine Star Brands. And underneath Jasmine Star Brands, we have a series of companies that we've either started or have a significant amount of equity in. And the content that I create then becomes a lift to the other businesses that are part of the holding company. And so my job is to be a visionary, and my job is to hire talent, because in each of the arms of the holding company, I'm going to be responsible for putting in operators for that, creating synergies between the operators, and then cultivating a community that services all or some or majority of those businesses.
Well, that sounds way more clear than an octopus.
Well, I mean, at the time of this recording, it's like years, right?
Yeah.
And so you sit in stasis,
Yes.
Jen. And you have seen me. You've seen me take pivots and shots and tries. And my job also as a CEO is to really look at revenue and to look at timeline and to look at cash flow and to look at projections. And then you're just like, okay, what kind of bets are we making here? How do we be as strategic as possible? And then how do we give ourselves the grace to say, this might not work.
How do you know that? I've seen you've done so many different iterations within your business, right? You've got a lot of different courses, a lot of different launches that you've done. And like we all do, we all are trying a lot of different things. And you are so unbelievably courageous in going all in on an idea. And how do you know, though? I know there's people listening to this right now that are like, I'm pushing on this idea and I believe in it. But when do I give up and move to the next one? How do you know when it's like, okay, this isn't the thing, I'm going to move to the next thing?
Man, well, okay, so I'm going to answer my truth, and I know it doesn't resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm very spiritually in tuned. And so every morning I just write down, I spend about maybe, not long, like maybe 10 minutes, and I'm just journaling, but I journal it to God. I'm like, God, this is how I'm feeling. And I've always since childhood, like when you grow up the daughter of an immigrant, when you don't grow up with much, you've learned to like live your life with open hands. And in a way, it used to feel like it was a liability. Like I never trusted, I never believed that what I had was going to stay. And then all of a sudden I started doing a lot of work and I was like, oh no, open-handed is really beautiful. It's come in or come out. I'm still good. And this is still good. And I'm still okay. So what's in my hand or not in my hand has nothing to do or be bearing of who I am. And so now I like, okay, God, it is open-handed. And there have been times in projects in the business where I look at it and I'm like, I don't need this. I want it. I want this. And I want this to work more than I wanted anything to work. But if it doesn't, I'll still be okay. And I think that when people talk about courage, I think that the only reason I can be courageous is because I've learned to live with much and I've learned to live with little. And my happiness is not tied to either of the two.
Can you give me an example of recently when you were journaling to God and you had a realization where this is a no for me?
Yeah. So the brand, my personal brand, for better or for worse, became so closely tied to social media. And during the time of this big social media push, so we're going back, you're finding me in that pivot, and I'm speaking to business owners, and I'm trying to find my voice, and I'm trying to become, like, I'm trying to determine when people, like, so when somebody was saying, I'm looking for photography education, or I'm looking for photography resources, my name was distinctly put into that. And it felt good. The way that Brene Brown was known for vulnerability and shame, and Dave Ramsey is about saving and not being in debt in the photography world, which is a small microcosm of it, but to be known for that thing, right? And so as I was pivoting, I was trying to figure out who am I about? When somebody says a topic, how is my name associated with that? And for better or for worse, it became very much about social media. I took that on and I just started creating so much content, and I felt like I could teach people how to create content. Still to this day, I can't. I could do it in my sleep. It has become a superpower. And so I'm like, great, I'm going to teach people how to do this, which is awesome. And then we created courses around it. Then we created a membership around it. And then we realized that the membership couldn't scale as much as we wanted because we weren't integrated with the social platforms. And so we became a tech company with our own tech stack. I hired a CTO. I hired a team. I sat as head of product. I did UI. I did UX. I went to how to build a SaaS company.
You built software.
I built software, which is so freaking stupid and amazing. No, it's stupid in that I'm like, I want to be a CEO of a SaaS company and I don't know a line of code and I don't know how to hire a CTO and I actually don't even know how to assess who's a good developer or not, right? It's like you get into these things and you're just like, we're going to figure it out. And then going back to it, it's like, it might not work. We're going to figure it out and it might not work. And I think that being in that place has made me so much of a stronger entrepreneur, which is setting me up for the holding company. Because what has transpired in this time of, again, pivot, like what am I going to be known for is there have been companies who are coming to me and asking questions. And of course, great. I'm not necessarily trying to build long-term consulting relationships, but in the tech world that I only know now, it's like people are offering me advisory roles. So I get to sit alongside that company with a tiny bit of equity in that company based on the information that I have. And so I do believe that I could not be ever brought in an advisory role in a tech company or even a company at scale had I not I know enough to be dangerous now with tech. Now I don't know enough to be good, but I know enough to be dangerous because I'll call you out. I'll look at budgets. I'll look at timelines. I'll look at roadmaps. I'll do a lot of questions. And that wouldn't happen had I not gone through, School of Hard Knocks. And so to have the SaaS company, we have a president who's sitting in and she's running it and she's killing it. And it's allowed me to step back and really do a deep inventory. What do you want? What do you want? And if, from my lips to God's ears, if we could create a powerhouse team and duplicate it the way that we have done for Social Curator inside of the holding company, game over. Because I'll fall on a sword. That team is full of scalpels, hardest working, smart, brilliant. They're the tiny and mighty. And I think to myself, if we've done it once, we could do it again. And now I just need to figure out what does that thing look like? And sitting in the patience of that, I'm not a patient person. I want it yesterday. And I think that's been the journey of like holding the balance between, I know what I've been called to, I'm nowhere near that, isn't going to happen, and when. And that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
I know. Do we need a martini? You don't even drink. I'm going to give you like a shot of mustard.
Oh my God. Yes!
A shot of mustard for your grilled chicken.
Oh my God.
Out here. Yes. It's
no,
like,
there's so much because I'm so freaking proud of you. And I'm seeing this energy in you that seriously, you guys, timestamp this episode because this holding company is going to be a massive thing. I just feel it. I feel it in my bones. I would never say that on my show if I didn't know it in my heart to be true. And that is just so in alignment for you. And you want to know where it's all. And I want to ask you a question where you can help me and our listeners, because I think that creating a holding company, definitely you have to have a good eye for people and talent. Mm-hmm. And you have an amazing eye for people and talent. Mm-hmm. And I know we've had these conversations before because you've always, for me, I have a really hard time hiring people. And you have found superstars in your company. You just said you have a president, you've been able to step back. I know that you have a CEO or COO that's incredible in your company, and you've been able to step back and find clarity. And you're a mom of a beautiful little girl, and you have time for your family. And this is because you know how to hire a team. And everyone I've ever met on your team is incredible.
Thank you, Jen.
So what goes into finding powerful team? How do you do this? Tell me.
I 100% will say I need to get better. I receive that as the highest compliment because it's come on the back of so much hard work and self-evaluation. I don't think that I can attract really self-aware people without myself learning how to increase my emotional intelligence as well as self-awareness. I will say that two things, I guess the holy in the hood, right? So we're going to get to the practical in a second, but really if I see a good person, I catalog them. I keep a human Rolodex and I'm like, I don't have a spot for you, but you're magic. And so then I'll follow on social, I'll follow up in DMs, I'll send emails, randomly just like, hey, I was thinking about you. How's everything going? I'm cultivating a relationship, caring about them as a human. And I just want to plot with them. What are you doing? Where are you going? Where's the pressure point? Is there an opportunity? And so I just keep a cachet of people so that if a role opens up or a specific talent that I think this person would excel at, be like, I'm going to call this person and pitch them a wild, crazy idea. That is how every scalpel. So there was a time in your business, like as you're scaling your business and you get to like $1 million or 1.5, you're wearing so many hats in the business. And there's a good chance that you're working with contractors, VAs. And then after that, like 1 million mark, you start maybe bringing in like a 1099 at like, that 20 to 25, and maybe you're at the W2, right? So you're really proud of this like tiny team, but the size of the business and the team, you don't have a lot of other revenue to invest in expanding the team. So what you do is you say, I need you to do like 4 different things, right? And so you have this really talented, amazing Swiss Army knife. But sometimes in the future, which really does happen, you really don't need the spoon or the corkscrew in the Swiss Army knife anymore. What you need is a scalpel. And as the business grows, you start attracting other scalpels who a scalpel is worth 3 Swiss Army knives. And so I'm always looking for, how do I attract a scalpel? How do I court a scalpel? How do I compensate a scalpel? And I think that a scalpel has opportunities and they know they're really good. And so you have to just cast a vision that is so clear about their opportunity and growth within an organization. Like, this is what it could be. Like, this is where we're going. How is that in alignment? Which leads us now to the practical part, which is the hood, is like, how do you get it done? Is to literally list everything you need that person to do. And we've seen it so many times on like LinkedIn, a very fancy job description. And you're like, okay, lots of words. What does it mean? And we have been totally at fault for putting out these types of job listings too. And really what you need is like, it's friend to friend language. Like, this is what you're going to do on a Monday. This is like what you do on a Tuesday. I need you to do, like, it's so simple that a 5th grader can understand it, but it's a very clear description of the role of that person. So let's give an example. For a while, I've been looking for an EA. for the size of the business that we are, I can't tell you how many times people had said, Jasmine, why don't you have an EA? And I'm like, because I got 85 plates and I don't have time to train somebody else to alleviate some of the plates. That's the story I was telling myself. I had tried in the past and it was unsuccessful. I had tried 2 EAs, executive assistants, in the last 2 years. Both of them didn't work of no fault of their own. Well, one fault was it wasn't clear enough. The second fault was that it was so clear and it was beautiful in a way because like a skin blemish, like a zit, it will either go back in or it will be pushed out. There's only one of 2 options.
Yeah.
Right? So when we had hired an EA, we had such a clear description of the role. We knew exactly what she needed to do. We even gave time estimates of how long it would be taking. And the more you do a task, the less time it takes. So in the beginning, when you first started training her, it's going to be like 5x the amount of time that it usually takes me to do this thing. We allocated 5x. So if something was taking me 1 hour, I said it will likely take you 5 hours. Well, it ended up taking her 5 hours. But then in the course of our 30, 60, 90-day check-in, it didn't get any less. And I was like, okay. So we started having a 30-day check-in saying, hey, this is where we need to start shifting. We were very clear. And whenever you're stuck, please come to us. We were meeting with her once a week to make sure we were on the same page. By day 60, we didn't see anything. And by that time, people are showing you their best in their first 60 days.
Yeah.
If you're not happy in 60 days, there's a really, really good chance you will not be happy thereafter. But because I want to always err on the side of consideration, caution, and like, how do I get better? I said, we're going to start meeting every other day to actually see what's going on. And I said, I need you to follow up with me. She didn't. By day 90, she was not surprised. And she had said, yeah, this is not a fit for me. So now let's juxtapose where we are now. Same job description, same role, same onboarding. But this time I had said, I want you to go through our onboarding process. And I want you to tell me how we make this better. As an executive assistant, I need somebody who's going to start seeing holes that I am not seeing myself because I think our onboarding's pretty locked in and tight. And so just last week we met. This is her second week. And she says, I do think that, and it was so simple. On our team, we have mental health days. And she said, when I came in, a mental health day is once a month. Every day, it's on a Friday. Mm-hmm. So we want the team to have a 3-day weekend just as a way to calibrate, do you?
Love that.
And she says, I came in and that week was mental health day, but I didn't know what a mental health day was. And so I wasn't sure what my expectations were. And I was like, atta girl. Absolutely. And I said, great. So now part of your SOP, standard operating procedures, I want you to make a video as an explanation of what a mental health day is and where you can find it on our team calendar. She deployed on it that day. And so it's like these types of things is like understanding clearly what you want them to do, bringing them into the process, giving them small challenges. We're still in her first 30 days and she's coming up to me and she's like, but why is the Asana task flowed this way? Why do you have this date? Can I move this? Can I get access to your calendar? So she's teaching me how to become a better boss because she's so good at what she is. She's an EA scalpel. And so I think that being able to court her for a while, watch her at a distance, I think that warm up time is like, I'm all in with her.
Masterclass in hiring and team, in explanation, like how to explain what you need from somebody and how to actually get them to, I love that person just kind of weaned themselves out. You didn't have to fire her.
I know.
She made the decision for you.
It was very clear.
Yeah, it just became unbelievably clear. And I guess that's the perfect solution to a situation like that.
Absolutely.
So then you don't have to have that conversation. I hate having those conversations.
You're listening to The Jen Gottlieb Show.
All right, I want to pivot into your personal life a little bit because I know that people watch you online, including myself, and I see all of your beautiful reels of you in the greatest outfits and you create so much content and you look amazing in every single piece of content. And I feel like, holy shit, she's also getting all this stuff done. She's got a SaaS company. She's got social curators. Mm-hmm. You've got all of these things that you're doing. You're speaking all over the place. You're traveling. You've got your podcast, which is unbelievably successful. And you're making all of this content in beautiful outfits. And on top of it, you have a daughter that's amazing. She's incredible. And you have a beautiful marriage to JD. And you guys just crush it. I mean, it feels like you do all the things and it feels like it's so seamless. And I want you to take me behind the scenes of a real day in the life so that people that are watching can understand and know how this is possible. Because I think some people are like, is this real or is that? And I think you have a lot to say about that. I want to give you the stage to talk about what the day in life for you actually looks like, mm-hmm. how you manage it, how you make it look like that, mm-hmm. and what's really going on.
Mm-hmm. So, well, first and foremost, I'll start here. So this is where the hood side comes out. I'm not even wearing big hoops, but if I was, I want to take them out. I'm going to take them out because I'm going to come out swinging by saying I will never change anybody's mind about an idea they have. So if they don't think it's possible, they're right. If they think that it's fake, they're right. I am not here to convince anybody, nor am I out trying to put any content that is intended to make my life look any different than it is in actuality. There is that. But if they choose to believe otherwise, listen, I am at a state in my life where I ain't got no beef. I have no time for beef. If you say I got beef with her, that's on you. I'm too tired to try to convince anybody that the way that I live my life is right or what I do is right or my methodology. I think we're all a little tired of that TikTok, Instagram, like, here's like the 4 steps to being a great mom. Here's the 18 steps to doing perfect content. This is how you stop. Like, we're all kind of tired of it. So I'm just going to do me and I post it out. And I will say that on stories, what I'll do is I'll just record myself doing anything, like making breakfast, working on my computer, putting on my makeup, and then I'll do a timeline of my day. I will literally minute by minute tell people what my day looks like. And I get so much engagement on those stories and a ton of questions. Like, do you really wake up at 4:30? Do you wake up with an alarm? What time do you go to bed? What do your tasks look like? So it's literally like wake up at 4:45, 5 a.m. to 5:30, pray, meditate, journal, 5:30 to 6, organize my email, 6 to 7:30 work out, 7:30 coffee with Luna till 8 o'clock to 8:45 is prep, 8:45 to 10 is going to be outlining podcasts, and then it's posting on social, engaging with social, writing my newsletter. I'm literally like, here's an open book of my day. When people are like, well, how do you get it all done? I'm literally showing you that my life is so structured and I work very long hours.
No, it's okay. It
sounds like I'm getting choked up, but I'm just like, I think I'm talking so fast that my words are literally caught in my throat.
This is so good because I love this. Scheduling out by the half hour, you get so much more done than you think that you could. Mm-hmm. So is that all in your calendar? Like wake up at this time and pray to this time and then.
Well, now it's become so rote. Like, I mean, I always joke, my husband hates when I say it, but I'm like, I'm a stalker's dream. I do the same thing. Like, you will know what workout class I go to. You will know the path that I take, the days that I go walking, the days, like everything is so structured. And people hear that and they're like, I could never live that. I would hate that. Great. It's not for you. I crave structure because the structure allows me time to be creative. Mm. And the structure gives me time to flex in big ways. I feel like I want to stop working at 3 p.m. and go on a walk with my husband and then do a matinee. I get to do that because structure allows me to do that. I wish I had I need white space. I need to think. If you do not schedule it, you will not get it. And so the structure is the key for me. Nobody else, y'all do you. But structure is the path to freedom. It is how I get stuff done. People are like, how does she do it all? I literally show you, like, I do the sucky work of sitting my ass in a chair and working, and I don't get up until it's done. And people are like, oh, but what about when things go wrong? I'll tell you, every day something goes wrong. Every day things will take longer. And guess what? Some things take shorter. And sometimes I don't finish everything on my to-do list. That's very common too. And so we just move it over to the next day. It's simple. It's not easy to actually sit down and just do the work, do the heavy lifting.
Bravo, sister. This is what it's about. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing this so honestly and openly and also I do also want to just acknowledge you for sharing something that I truly believe in, is that there's no one right or wrong way to do it. It's only the way that you want to do it. You can share your truth, how you do it, what works for you, but there's no 5 steps to anything. That's definitely how everybody here needs to do everything. This is just Jasmine sharing your truth, and you can take a piece of it or leave a piece of it or take all of it or leave all of it. Mm-hmm. And this is how it works for you. And I mean, just as your friend and as a fan of yours and just someone that admires you so much, you walk your talk. And I only have people on this show that walk their talk. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm so excited that you're sharing with us.
Thank you, babe.
The walk that you do each day. And this is it. It's not, you guys, it's not rocket science. You schedule your shit out.
Yeah.
Now I have a real question for you, because I just had Stephen Pressfield sitting in the chair and he talks all about the resistance that comes with doing the work.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting down to do the work, do you ever get that resistance? Like, maybe I should put this off until tomorrow, or who are you to be doing this? Or maybe I should, do you ever get like squirrel, I want to go do something else right now, just because maybe doing that act that you're about to do as an entrepreneur that's creating stuff either becomes scary or difficult or hard or challenging?
Every day.
Okay.
Every day, all the time. And I feel like your resistance becomes a lot more savvy when you become stronger. So it's less about that typical, because I've gone through those phases of like, who are you to do this? Other people have done it better. I just feel like I've kind of like been there, done that. I was like, listen, baby, there's nothing new under the sun. So you are going to repeat what somebody said, but somebody needs to hear it from you, by you, in the way that you said it, showing up the way that you are. So once you kind of move past that, the resistance is so much sneakier. It's, oh, but you know what? There's this other thing that's just as important that I could be doing. Or this is very urgent. Your resistance becomes savvy when urgent takes over important. Oof. And your resistance becomes very savvy when it's, yeah, but I'm actually engaging on social media. And so I'm working, which yes, but not all objectives in your business are created equal. If you are engaging instead of doing something that's actually going to move a lever in your business, they are both important, but they are not as important as each other. And so by you literally timelining of your day, I have to get what is important and I will leave what is urgent. And if I get to the urgent, great, but I can't get off track. And I think that this could possibly rub people the wrong way, but I will say it, is my actions have to map my ambitions. The reason why I literally have no vested interest in the amount of time or how hard work, I don't think that working a lot is like, oh, you get a medal. Not at all. I do think that your actions have to match your ambitions, and I have very big ambitions. And in order for me to remain at the size of my team, given our restraints, given all these things you have to put in together to keep yourself growing, but you're in a box, if that is what I have to do, then my actions have to map where I want to go. And oftentimes, when I look at the resistance, I just simply have to say, where do you want to go? And if this is getting in the way of where you want to go, you don't do it. And that just takes discipline.
It's discipline. When it comes down to it, all of this is discipline.
All of it.
And the more that you practice being disciplined, the more that you see that discipline actually does equal freedom, but you have to do it in order to learn that.
Yes.
I want to talk about this ambition that you have, because you have a fire inside of you, and everyone that meets you can just feel that. I felt that from the second that I met you. It's this, it's like you have this very strong ambition, and I would love to know where that comes from. Seriously, have you always had this ambition? Does it come from something specific? Do you have a really strong why?
Years of therapy. We about to unfold some stuff. Yeah. You know, I used to joke. So in my family, we always say, like, we put the fun in dysfunctional. So no, you know, I used to joke with my family. Like, they were like, why are you so ambitious? And I was like, because something in me is broken, obviously. And I started realizing that it was as if the accomplishments would mean that I was worth or deserving. And I think that it was almost like you were training through a boot camp of, if I do this, then it will be enough. And if I do this, then it will be enough. And then I'll belong. And then I'll have what I want. And the sad, tricky part of the game is there are levels. And when you reach a new level, you see how big and far the next level is. Yeah. And so now what I look at as my ambition is simply to say, did you give it your all? Did you use every opportunity in your life to make the most of what you had been given? Mm. And I think that comes off the back of, I don't watch television. I can't really tell you what's going on in Netflix. I don't really know a lot what's going on in politics or pop culture. I really don't do girls' weekends as much as I would love to. I am not the let's catch up over coffee after we drop kids off at school. I am not the I do the PTA volunteer thing. I love all of that. But I feel like my ambition is simply to say I gave the most of what I had to leave the world a little bit better. And that comes at the cost of some other things. But the ambition now is simply to say, for the greater good, because you alone are enough.
Goosebumps everywhere. I think it's really cool to talk about this, to say, you know what? I don't watch TV. I don't need to go to the PTA meeting. I don't need to know what's going on in politics. Like, I do me. Like, I don't need to go lay on a beach for 2 weeks and not do anything. I have a feeling that you're the type of person that if you go on vacation, you're also creating content or reading personal development books or listening to podcasts
or
in some capacity.
But I go in with the intention. Sometimes it is a working vacation.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So the intention of rest. because I think there's a lot of really ambitious people listening to this podcast, and there is an undertone of, oh, if I take a day off or if I rest, it's I'm being lazy, or it's resistance got to me. But I think that we're on the same page when we think about intentional rest, because I know we've talked about this before. If you actually make the recovery a task and it's something that you have to do and it's intentional, talk to me about how you do that, and especially how you do that like with your family to be a mom, because I want to segue into the fact that you are also an amazing mother and wife.
That is like the kindest thing you could say. I think that's the thing I take the most pride in, honest to God. So before I move on, I want to go back and say something, because if you cut me open, a bald eagle flies out. Like, I am America's girl. Like, I love this country. Just because I don't pay attention to politics in the finite way, I absolutely do enough research for me to make an educated decision and to vote. Important. And so I just wanted to make sure, like, I don't abdicate that. I think that my father immigrated to this country and then earned his citizenship by enlisting in the United States Marine Corps. And I deeply, deeply understand like the right, the privilege, and the power to vote. So just want to clear that out.
Important.
I was like, oh, bless America.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we going? Where are we going?
We're going with intentional rest.
Yes. Okay.
And family time.
Yes. So we have gotten to a point in our relationship, JD and I. JD is my husband, best friend, business partner, and we now classify our vacations. And it's either going to be rest or it's going to be intention. And we will take breaks to go somewhere with intention. Sometimes we go together as a family, and sometimes I go alone. So most recently, I went to a facility called Sensei. And we've spoken. Oh my gosh, Jen.
We talked about this.
I called you from Sensei.
Yes.
And I said, I have no technology. I'm not in anything. I locked my phone away in a case. I went back up to the room. I brought my phone out because I said, when I was journaling, I saw something for you. And like we had, like 5-7 minute conversation. I think you were walking and I was out by the pool and I was like, there's these things that are going on. So when we talk about that for me is to go in and to not have technology. That is for me to go in and say, what do you want? Are you mapping to happiness? Are you mapping to purpose? What is missing and what needs to change? And I don't think that we give ourselves enough opportunities, at least I didn't, for years, to actually simply say, I have one life. Am I doing the thing I want to do, or am I doing it because it's been done? Then we have rest vacations where it's just, I'm just going to read my fiction books. We are going to make sandcastles. We're going to go to museums. We're going to be completely and totally off. And I make a lot of time for active rest. And I think it's so important to schedule it. And so when I go away to those like intentional, like what am I doing with my business, my life, I actually schedule out what I'm doing. Like I will schedule out Reiki. I will schedule out meditation. I will schedule out health and wellness, yoga. This is when I'm journaling. This is when I'm walking. This is when I do the museum walk. It's literally a structure because I have to break the frame, because we come into it and we're like social media, work, Slack. And I'm like, no. I'm breaking the frame. But in order for me to break the frame and not get tempted, I'm like, okay, so now I'm doing this. And now I'm doing this. And now I'm doing this. So that when I leave, I am inordinately recharged because I went in specific with what I wanted to do.
And you have an amazing husband who takes care of your baby girl while you go do things like that.
Yes.
You have a quote unquote non-traditional family.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
In like so many different ways.
Yes.
So our daughter found us in February of 2020. She picked us as her mom and dad. We met in Las Vegas, Nevada. Best thing to ever happen. Man, see, I can't even talk about her. She's the best thing to ever happen to us. Changed us inside out. Has made me so much more purposeful, so much more intentional, a lot softer. I used to joke, you've known me for years, far before Luna came into our lives. And I used to joke, I would be like, what are tears? Like they just fall. Like, why do some people have them? Because I don't really feel like I get them. And then it's like I just say her name and then I start to cry. She's just this beautiful, beautiful human who has changed us so much so. And her coming into our life has really challenged the way that I see time and the way that I see motherhood and the way that barring some miracle, this is our family. We have a family of 3 and we get one first time of anything. And so I always remind myself in like the peaks and the valleys of business, I have it all. In the valleys and in the darkest moments, I have it all. I have a healthy daughter. I have a phenomenal husband. I have really, really, really good friends that I can call anytime. I said my family's dysfunctional, but we're very fun. And I say it jokingly because they're such good people. I have it all. And I never want the business to infringe on that. And I think having her has been a spotlight on really grounding. You've won. You've won. Wealth is defined by the health of your mind. And with her, I have a deep understanding of my wealth and my wellness of mind. And yes, we have a non-traditional marriage in that my husband and I are co-founders. We built every business together. And we adopted her at the start of the pandemic. And so it was this really transitional point of our life. We had sold our house. We were going to be building another house. And then like the city closes down and we're like, we have nowhere to go. Nobody's renting houses because it's the start of the pandemic. So nobody knows, like the world is falling apart. The only place that would take us in, it was like literally like the inn. We're in Bethlehem. And I was like, there's nowhere for us. It was like this apartment complex. And we're like, we're moving in, get a 2-bedroom apartment. This is where we were. And it was just the 3 of us. And I had no idea. I was so like worried. I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen? But it was like the best thing for us because it was just the 3 of us in a nest for over a year. It was just the 3 of us for over a year in this tiny little nest. Best thing that could have ever happened in our entire lives because the bonding was so rich and it was so deep. And that was our entire world. And that was her entire world. And so, we are both a part of the business and we would bring in a nanny during working hours, but it's the 3 of us at home. We had since moved into our home. And when Luna turned 3, JD said over date night, he said, you know, I've been really feeling this call. We have one first time for anything. And I want her to have a full-time parent. I was like, great. And I thought he was saying something to me. And then he said, I want to take a step back in the business and I want to be her full-time parent. I was shocked.
Wow.
And it literally felt like it came out of left field because we had like this really powerful system, like this thing that was working so well for us. And I felt like in a moment I had to mourn the current and then celebrate the current. And I was like, that's exactly what I want. You are the best thing to ever happen to her. And so still to this day, just this like 3 days ago, he's like, you know, I'm a full-time dad. And I was like, yeah, well over a year now. He's like, right. He's like, I felt like I kept on thinking that part of my identity was tied up in the business. And he still does a few things in the business. Our COO has really stepped up and done so much and taken on. And she's a mad orchestrator of the thing that we're building. And JD is very happy in his role as a full-time dad. And it's beautiful. It's very untraditional. And we celebrate it. We're like two just like hippies, like figuring out our way. And like, she's 4.5. She probably should have been in preschool. She probably should be in TK. We're still figuring that out. I was like, listen, she's fine. I was like, she's going to be fine. And people are like, well, aren't you worried about social acclimation? I was like, I was homeschooled until high school. I didn't learn how to read till I was 11. I still to this day don't know my multiplication tables. I don't know the state capital. Like, I don't know a lot of stuff and I'm doing just fine. I think she'll be okay. I know. Untraditional, but doing it your way. Mm-hmm.
Get outside of your comfort zone and into your best life, one small step at a time.
I guess where I want to segue now is an important conversation. People asking me about this a lot, and I want to hear it from you. You're often in a lot of rooms where you're the only woman. Mm-hmm. You're in a lot of masterminds that I know that you are one of the only women. You go to a lot of events where you speak and you're one of the only women. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear how you go into those, like the mindset around being the only woman in the room, how that feels, how people treat you, or is that empowering for you? Do you wish that there was more? Like, what's your take on this whole concept of like, I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, you know, there's not enough space for women. There's not enough women in this space. There's not enough women speakers. I'm not going to say how I feel until I want to hear your outlook.
Well, I mean, I like to look at things from a non-emotional perspective and just use data and analytics. If you look at the business space and how many companies are women-led versus male-led, and then the representation of people in the industries who are leaders of said industries, it's wildly disproportionate. If you were to look at the amount of funding that businesses actually get, it's so wildly disproportionate to actual representation. So instead of somebody like, who cares about my opinion? I'm just saying fact, and analytically, it's wildly disproportionate. And if there is a system, a game that is not supportive or rigged against one, I have a problem with it. But the only way you change the game is by playing the game and being a formidable force in the game. So do I wish things changed? Absolutely. But I believe that change is an activation from within. So if I want to change the system, get in the damn room. And sometimes that means paying to be in the room. Sometimes it means to barter to be in that room. Sometimes it means to ask a favor. And so you want to find your allies who say, are you going to make space for me in that room? And having the courage to ask for that.
Yeah. All we can do is just get in the room and showcase exactly what we can bring.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think I think we have an unbelievable opportunity as women to get into rooms, and I find it it's like almost like my secret unfair advantage. I like going into the room being the only woman. I feel like I just feel proud. And I feel like it's almost, I have the opportunity for more people to look at me, for more people to listen to me, because I am different. Because if there's a lot of men in the room, I'm the one that's different. And people are going to remember me. And if I can go in there and I can be like, look, this is how we're going to show up, and we're going to break the space open for all of the other women, like, I am proud to do that. And I'm not like, woe is me, there's not enough women here. I'm like, let's go. Let's show them what's up.
But also at the same time, I think you need to give yourself credit in that you and I both come from the school and belief that we say other women's name in those rooms.
Always.
And it's always like, now I make it part of my process. If somebody asks to speak, I want to know who else is speaking. I want to know, are there people of color? Are there women? And if not, then I'm like, have you guys considered it? Because I have a great, I'd love to recommend people. Or afterwards, I'll say, I really loved this. Here's a few other people who I think you should consider for next year's events. Because I do believe that it's not enough to be a single representation. And you've embodied this plenty of times. I know I've seen it up close. It's not enough to be different in the room. And it's not enough to break a frame of what people perceive a woman to be in the space. It has to be that you're opening doors for the people behind you. It has to be easier for the next person to get a place on the stage or a place in the room or a seat at the table. If it's not, we didn't do our job.
Amen, sister. Yes. Okay. So I don't even know oh my gosh. Okay. Here's what I want to hear from Jasmine Star, just as we close this up, because we went everywhere. We went all over the sun. And I'm in awe of you. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours.
And we'll get to do that in a few days.
I know. I can't wait. Oh my God. So you're creating such an amazing, beautiful example for your daughter, Luna. Every single day. You just live it for her. You show her by your actions. If you could tell her one piece of advice, she's about to go start her life. She's in her 20s. She's going to go do it. She's excited. She maybe doesn't know what direction she's going to go in, but she's going off. And you're saying, okay, Luna, have your wings and fly and go do your thing. If that was happening today, what would you say to her?
I would say, do it all and do it fast and take bigger risks than you're comfortable with. And do not revel in success and do not despair in failure. Continue pushing yourself, because life is about the experiences that you create and who you meet and who you help along the way. I hope that you bet on yourself. I hope that you take doubt and disbelief and you succeed, and that you show people what's possible with the little or the much that you have, and never forget to give to others who may not have had the same opportunity you did.
And that's where we will end today, because there's nothing else that I need from you. That was
I cried twice on this podcast. Good God, girl.
Oh my God.
What is it? Did you cry if the tears didn't fall? I call them gangster tears. Oh. They kind of build up, right? You get it together, gangster.
Okay, those are the best kind of, because you don't mess up your eyelashes.
That's right.
As long as the eyelashes are intact.
Thank you. I think that sometimes people can see a tough shell, and that I am, but it's just a pile of mush on the inside. And I think that this podcast just allowed people to see a different side of me. And I just want to say thank you. I love you.
I love you. I know that side of you. I get to see that side of you, and I wanted the world to see that side of you. So thank you for being here. Where can people find you? I mean, it's obvious, but just share with people.
Jasmine Star Podcast, JasmineStar.com.
Listen to her podcast. It's amazing. I've been listening to it for quite some time.
And Jen's been on a guest.
Come on.
Yes.
All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to The Jen Gottlieb Show or watching The Jen Gottlieb Show, and I'll see you next time.